Welcome to How Preschool Teachers Do It.
This is Allison Kentos. I am an early childhood educator.
And this is Cindy Tarabush. I am an early childhood consultant.
This podcast is for parents and early childhood professionals.
Let our experience and research-based knowledge become your guide. In this episode, we're going to talk about your children's other instructors. Children today don't only spend time with families and with teachers, they also spend a lot of time with people like sports coaches, dance instructors. Who else, Allison? Am I leaving anybody out?
Like club
yes,
organizers, scout leaders.
Right. And I think it's important for us to talk about that because these people also have a great impact on your children's development, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
And children, particularly in the early childhood years, are forming opinions about themselves. And I think it's important that they're approached with encouragement and some kindness. And I don't know if that's always the case.
Yeah, especially in activities that are competitive.
Yeah. Don't you think kids today compete at much younger ages than we did? We used to play sports or dance or whatever for the fun of it, and it feels like nobody does that anymore. It feels like everybody's got to be on the elite team or the championship team, or there's some goal to be that, and that's a lot of pressure for kids. Yeah. So it really does matter how people approach them. One of the things that I want to do in my career, which is, here's a little known fact about Cindy. When I think about what are my goals for the future, one of the things I'd like to do is take some of the things that I teach all the time to educators and potential educators about child development and do that same work with those other instructors, with coaches, with dance instructors, with gymnastics instructors, with the Little League volunteers and the Pop Warner volunteers. I would like to make that a part of my career just because I feel like it's so important.
Well, think about the difference you could make if those volunteers and instructors had a background or the education.
Or just some knowledge,
Or just a little bit of knowledge.
Just more knowledge than I'm a parent.
Workshop.
Yeah. And parenting, by the way, you get a lot of knowledge from parenting, but there's so much more information about children's development that I think you could be the best instructor or coach in the whole world, but I think you could be even better if you understood some child development.
Yeah.
You could be doing it in a kind way and an encouraging way and all that stuff. I think you could teach the children more if you understood some of the things that I work with teachers about. And that Allison knows because of her work. Yeah. Did you take lessons when you were a kid? Did you do any of the sports and lessons?
No, I was in Girl Scouts.
Them too, right?
Yeah, I was in Girl Scouts, but I wasn't an athlete, so I didn't do any of that. Mm-hmm. And then my brother was an athlete. He was in a lot of sports, and I would go and watch his games, but I wasn't in any of that stuff, really. Yeah.
My kids had things they were involved with. My younger son was the athlete, and I witnessed a lot of things. I saw some coaches who were really great, and then I saw some who I had a hard time dealing with because I thought that they were very negative and marginally mean. To these kids. And that's not how you get children to do their best. I'm sorry, but it's not. Being nasty and threatening them doesn't help children to rise to their fullest potential.
Well, I feel like what happens in that competitive world, right, of sports or sometimes even dance, because dance is getting competitive now too.
Yes, it's very competitive. I can't even believe what goes on. I know from my niece, like how the recitals and, all that stuff, and that there are competitive dance teams. She's young. But at her recitals, the competitive dance team is always doing performances.
Right. It used to be about learning an art form, but no, it's like this competitive thing now. But I think what's happening is it's not just the kids that are like getting competitive. It's these coaches that are like more
Well,
competitive, and then
yeah.
they're getting like angry at these kids who are just wanting to play a game, or maybe they don't have the skills yet to know how to play the game, and then they're like berating these kids
And you know what? I
because
don't
they
want to.
didn't win a game, and it's like, you're an adult. Think about why you're here. You're here for the kids,
Right.
and people
But
are
I don't want to put
forgetting
it
that they're
on.
here for the
I
kids.
don't want to put it all on the instructors and coaches either, because they're
No,
under pressure from families.
right.
Sometimes they're under
If
pressure, just like you and I are as early
And
educators.
yes, now I live in front of, so in my backyard is a soccer field.
Hmm.
And I have to say, I watch the kids play. It's really cute. And they're little. They're like under third grade. I mean, they're little. And you know who's out there yelling most of the time? Is not the coach. The
No,
coach is out there
it's
being
the
like, good
families,
job,
right?
good job. It's the parents.
Yeah, it's the families. Some of
Mhm.
the families get very invested, and we
Yeah,
forget what the children need. So you and I are early childhood experts,
yeah,
and we're going to talk about primarily early childhood. And when children are very young, they are developing the notion of who they are. They do compare to other people when they're doing that. We need
yeah,
to be very careful that they understand that all of them have gifts, that they each contribute to this world and to the whole if they're part of a team. And we need to make sure that their other instructors are approaching them in a teaching way versus a negative way. I'm not
yeah,
sure what word I'm looking for, but definitely you want to approach them in a way that is instructive versus destructive, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and if take your child to a place where you feel like my child is getting frustrated, discouraged,
yeah.
could feel picked on, then folks, you need to find somewhere else,
Find somewhere else.
or
Yeah,
find a different coach or a different team or you need to move the child.
right.
Because you can't, there is, you know, and if you find an instructor or a coach or someone or an advisor to a club or group who does that for your child, who does, absolutely builds them up, finds their gift, makes them feel valued, then hang on to that person for as
Yeah,
long as you can.
yeah,
But ultimately, I think that it should become a thing that anyone who works with young children has to have some sort of lesson or some sort of continuing education having to do with child development.
yeah. Almost like they take little, like a workshop, and they
Yeah, it
get
should be required.
like,
I think it should be required in Little League,
yeah,
in Pop Warner, in dance schools. It should be required of Girl and Boy Scout people,
right,
youth group advisors. I think this really should be required. They're
right,
interacting with our children.
right,
Why is it that you and I are required to know so much of this, but all those other instructors are not?
right,
Also, here's a question. You and I are background checked.
right. I'm not so sure if they are,
I don't know. I don't
because I
know.
mean, they're volunteering.
Sometimes they're volunteers, sometimes they're
Sometimes
paid
they're not. Sometimes they're
instructors,
paid,
right?
like
Like,
paid dance instructors.
or
But I,
gymnastics coaches or whatever. They're paid.
yeah,
But
but
are they background checked is a question. It's required that you and I are background checked.
right.
And I sometimes have to show when I go into certain school settings that I've been checked.
Yeah, you do.
And or they ask me to be checked again. You know how many times I have had fingerprints
I,
done?
I've had fingerprints done many, many times.
Yeah, me too.
Because even though I've had mine done at my school that I work at, like I volunteer at another school in another town, right?
Mm-hmm.
For another organization that I belong in. They're like, no, we need another background check. I'm like, oh, but I have one from my school.
Right.
It's the same one. It's the same one. They're only checking for the certain things. They're like, no, we want our own. I
So,
said,
yeah,
okay.
I mean,
And
as
I did it again
educators,
because I was like, all right,
right,
you
as
can do it
educators,
again.
we may be doing this
Yeah,
multiple times. They'll check our
yeah,
fingerprints. We also have to sign off that they'll do a child abuse record check.
yeah.
And I think everyone should have to do that too. And I don't understand why they're behind the eight ball with that, honestly. I asked my husband in my independent, totally non scientific survey of this, I asked one person, my husband,
Yeah.
who was a volunteer Little League coach. I asked him if he ever had to have a background check before he coached, and he said no. So I don't know if that's still true or if they've changed that,
Well,
because again, my kids are in their 20s.
But also, look at some of the stories that have come out about like the U.S. women's gymnastic team coaches.
Oh my gosh, you're right. I forgot about
like
that.
that.
Is
So,
like unbelievable that was allowed to go on.
Right. So clearly these people are not being background checked. Because, I mean, those coaches.
Or clearly somehow we're missing the mark.
Well, because those coaches own their own gymnastics, whatever, school, I guess it would be called. I don't know. And when you own your own company, you're not going to background check yourself to own. You know, that's how some of them might be kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's what I think. I think families should start demanding that anyone who works with their children be background checked in some way. You there, Allison? I heard a funny noise.
I lost you.
Okay. I was saying, maybe you didn't catch it or the recording didn't catch it, but I was saying that I think that families should start demanding that anyone who works with children be background checked in some way. And just so you're aware, teachers are usually fingerprinted and child abuse record checked.
Yeah.
I think that families need to be diligent about the people who are interacting with their children being encouraging, coming from a strength-based place, which means coming from what are my children's strengths versus here's all your weaknesses.
Right.
And I think that we need to understand that too much pressure on young children is dangerous for their physical and mental health.
Yeah, especially with all the mental health concerns that have been arising lately.
Yeah, there's a lot of mental health concerns now, and I think that doesn't help. So when you are looking for a place for your children to have extracurricular activities, and you are with those people, just keep this all in mind, and maybe we can sort of make that movement happen in some places. We hope that you subscribe and share this podcast with others. We have lots of episodes that we're releasing. We release episodes of about 15 minutes every other Monday morning, so please do subscribe. And I hope if this is your first time listening to us that you will look back at prior episodes. We talk about all different sorts of topics having to do with working and raising young children. Anything else, Allison? Anything we want to say?
No, that's good, I think. You did a good job that time.
Oh, thank you. I try to sum up well. You would think I would be practiced at this
really
now,
good.
but it always feels a little awkward. So thanks for that encouragement.
You did really well.
Thank you. Thanks for that encouragement.
Every time summing up, because summing up is not something I can do well.
We know each other's strengths. Here's another thing. Yeah. Know your child's strengths and capitalize on those, just like Allison and I do. We'll catch you next time on the podcast.
All right.